And this is the good news of our brother Jesus Christ.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I told you not to worry. This is a prop.
Thank God.
Some of you don't like when Drew and I wear props. All right, and the reason is that I have your full attention now, don't I? So now it's up to me to keep your attention. All right, when I was going over today's gospel, I said, like everybody has heard this gospel so many times. All right, most of you could, repeat it verbatim without even looking at the book. So what is it about today's gospel that is going to talk to us? And I looked at it and I said, most of us in this parish of ours have sight. Do any of us know what it is or how it feels to be blind? I didn't know how it felt, until I put the blinders on. All right, and at that point, you know what vision is. You know what the lack of vision is. That allowed me, to put myself into Bartimaeus' shoes for just a little bit. Now, when we think about it, Bartimaeus did not have a social net. All right? He did not have disability. He did not have the Jewish Disabilities Act. He did not have the advantage of a seeing eye dog. He did not have the advantage of a white cane. He had none of this. And when they said he was begging, that also indicated something else. That he did not have a family to support him. Mother, father, siblings. He was by himself. And he sat by the road begging with his tin cup or whatever vestibule he had to collect money. You also have to realize that whatever money that he did get, all right, was from Jews who were very poor themselves because the Romans took their pound of flesh. All right, so whatever few coins he had to go towards food. It did not go towards rent or a mortgage or anything like that. So where did Bartimaeus live? Now, obviously, he didn't live on the road that he begged on because robbers would have taken whatever he was able to collect that day. So he probably lived in a cave or maybe under a bridge somewhere. Right? So who brought him from that cave to the side of the road every day? It's not mentioned in the gospel, but he had to get there some way. And if he couldn't see, how did he get there? I mean, I just exhibited to myself, all right, that when Terry was bringing me up, I had no idea where I was. And when I went to, I knew those steps were there. I've gone up those steps a million times, all right, and yet I tripped on them. So how did Bartimaeus get from wherever he dwelled to the side of the road? And I thought that he had somebody who brought him there. Maybe it was the same somebody every day. You know, and I was reflecting on that a little bit, and once again, in our blindness, right? Because there are elements of our lives which we do not see, or refuse to see, or do not appreciate. Now, when I want the truth, all right, and those are rare times that I really want the truth, because sometimes the truth really hurts. I'll go to Bernie, all right? And because we have such a deep love for one another, all right, Bernie will not want to hurt me. All right, so the truth hurts. So what you'll do is she'll sugarcoat it. She'll sugarcoat the bitter pill. All right, and I appreciate that. But when I'm really looking for the truth, all right, I go to somebody else. Now, Terry was part of my prop, right? All right. But apropos, Terry is not only my prop, right? Terry is my go-to person when I want the bitter truth. Terry is my spiritual director, all right? When I want the bitter truth, all right, I know that Terry loves me dearly, but he knows what I want and he gives me what I need, all right? So, I want to thank you, my brother. Namaste.
Namaste.
All right, the first nugget this morning. Who is your go-to person? Who is the person that you go to? Pretending that you're Bartimaeus. Who is the person that takes you from the cave and brings you to where you have to be? When you have determined who that person is, all right, make sure that you thank them today. All right? That's the first nugget. All right, let's dive into this gospel a little bit more. So we have Bartimaeus, the blind person. We have Jesus curing Bartimaeus. Now we have a woman in this parish who worked for an Orthodox Jewish person. And that Orthodox Jewish person, as an aside, said to the woman in our parish, you know, your Jesus was nothing more than a magician. That's a person without faith, all right, looking at Jesus and calling him a magician. We all know what magicians are. It's all smoke and mirrors, right? All right, so if Jesus was a magician, he would have had to seek out Bartimaeus, who actually was not blind, and say to Bartimaeus, listen, I want you to pretend you're blind, sit on the side of the road, ask me to make you well again, and I'll create this miracle. We have the faith. All right, we know that that is not what happened. All right, we know what has happened. Now, Mark, interestingly enough, now you know, and I've told you many times, that I am not a biblical scholar. So I play one on Sunday mornings on YouTube, but I am not a biblical scholar. Mark, you know, like we know, wrote the first gospel. All right? When we talk about the synoptic gospels, we're talking about Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Why did we call them synoptics? All right, because they copied each other's work. There was no such crime as plagiarism, all right, in the Jewish reality. Now, Mark wrote the first gospel. Matthew copied his gospel, I would say 75% of the time. Luke also copied Mark and Matthew. All right, the interesting thing is in all three of these gospels, there is this story, the same story. Okay, now Mark, remember, is the one who wrote the first one. He calls the blind man Bartimaeus. Matthew writes the second gospel. The same story, doesn't call the blind person Bartimaeus, but makes it two blind men who are sitting on the side of the road. And Luke finally, all right, mimics most of Mark's gospel, but does not call him Bartimaeus. So we ask ourselves, what is it about Mark's gospel that he calls this person Bartimaeus? Well, it's quite obvious. All right. Bartimaeus, all right, now this is where I'm going to ask for your help. Okay. There are areas of my brain which I have no more access to. I forgot the password. All right. So if you can correct me, I would gladly have you do that. In all of Jesus' miracles, there are only two that I can remember, all right, where the recipient of the miracle is named. All right, we're all familiar with Lazarus. He was named. All right, Bartimaeus is named. Is there any others? We know that Jesus cured Peter's mother-in-law, but is she named? So, once again, I don't know what's in my memory. All right, but if you people know, there's a card, in my cubbyhole outside, there's my business card. So take my card and give me a call and let me know who else was named. Now we know that, all right, this was not a magician show. This was an actual miracle. But what does it say to us? Because none of us are blind. And I was thinking about that, and I was saying, am I blind at all? Are any of us blind? And I came up with the realization, all right, that all of us have blind spots. I'll give you an example. Bernie and I can be driving down Bannonia Road, going to 37. And all of a sudden she said, Vinny, pull over. And I said, well, what's the matter? She said, did you see that woman with the shopping cart walking? And I didn't see it. So she said, let's go and see if she needs help. So I said, all right. One illegal U-turn, go down a couple of blocks, another illegal U-turn so that we can pull up beside her. And Bernie says, can we help you? Can we give you a ride? And she says, no, I live around the block. Thank you very much. Bernie sees things that I don't. What do I mean by that? Obviously, my eyes, even though they have cataracts, all right, can see the woman with the shopping cart. But yet it does not register. It does not register with my brain the way it does with her brain. All right, so in other words, I see, but I don't see. To me, that's a blind spot. I'll give you another example. For the last 7 or 8 years, I've had to go into New York City to see my oncologist. And, the easiest way for me to get in there is to hop on the nonstop bus in Township and go right to Port Authority. And that drops me off at 8th Avenue. NYU Hospital is on 1st Avenue. And most days I walk. All right. But coming back one day, it might have been the second or third time I was in New York, I had to take the subway because it was raining. And I'm walking along once again, seeing but not seeing, until I trip over this bag of rags, and right away, I realize that that's a homeless person. And in my heart, I had the terrible word that is used in today's gospel, an onomatopoeic word, rebuke, rhymes with puke, disgusting. All right, and I looked at that person, and my immediate reaction was disgust. And then something clicked, and all of a sudden I realized that's a human being. It's a human being in that bag of rags, lying there. And I was compelled to pull out my wallet and give that person a few bucks. And he was so gracious. I left the subway, got on my bus, and on the way home, that thought kept on reoccurring. And I said to myself, why is it that today I see for the first time the only homeless person in New York City? Why was that only homeless person in New York City right there for me to see? And then I realized, wait a minute. New York City has a homeless problem. All right? That person wasn't the only one. You just weren't seeing the rest of them. And at that point I said, well, what can I do so that I can see the rest of them? And I devised this scheme that I would fold up two $5 bills and put them in my pocket the next time I went to New York. All right, and the object was to give those $5 bills to a homeless person, one on the way to the hospital, one on the way back. All right? I think it was the second or third time, maybe the fourth, that I got off the bus, turned down, and I was within a block of Port Authority, all right, where I see this homeless person, this homeless man. He had put cardboards on a subway grate. All right, and he had just woken up, and he was disturbed because he couldn't get his bedding into the plastic garbage bag. And he was mumbling under his breath. All right, and I said, let me give the $5. And then I said, he's a little bit disturbed. I'm going to find somebody else I can give it to. Well, I got to NYU Hospital, and I didn't see anyone else. And now I'm kicking myself saying, that was the person that should have gotten that money. I'll give you another example. In fact, I have two more if you have the time. All right, so I'm walking down 42nd Street heading to Port Authority on this one day, and I'm looking for somebody to give my $5 to, right? And right next to McDonald's, all right, is this homeless person. All right, he's sitting there at the entrance of McDonald's. I said, I'm going to go over and give him. As I'm walking over, the door to McDonald's opens, and out comes this well-dressed man. And I'm telling you, he's dressed to the nines, all right? He has his McDonald's bag in his hand. All right, he comes out and immediately goes over to the homeless guy and says, I think I got everything that you requested. He opens up the bag, all right, brings out the hamburger and half unwraps it for him. And I'm saying to myself, wow. I'm going to slip this guy $5 and he can't walk away. And this man bends down and says, what would you like to eat? Goes in, orders it, waits for it, pays for it, comes out and practically serves it. I felt so small. The last example. One of my trips, I'm nearing Port Authority and I still have the $5 in my pocket. And I'm saying, I gotta get rid of this $5. So all of a sudden, this old woman was walking towards me, and our eyes meet. And she comes walking at me. So I take the $5 out. She's old, all right? She's dressed in black. Not shabby, but, like, not high class. Definitely not high class. And I offered her the $5. She looks at it and she says, "Oh, thank you so much." And she says, "I'll be seeing you," and walks away. I'm saying to myself, 8 million people in this city. How are the two of us by chance ever going to meet again? All right? That shook me. So what I'm trying to say is that when we look at a gospel and think that we know the gospel, dig a little bit deeper, all right? Because I know that I have blind spots. I know that, all right? I see, but I don't see. I don't see what Bernie sees. I don't know if you can identify with that or not. We all have an element of blindness. Is there part of us that can say, "Jesus, that I might see"? Namaste.